Welcome to the Wellness for Women show, where we talk about life, weight loss and everything in between. I'm Faye Caseman, founder of the AAA Way Life and Weight Loss Programme, and I'm here to help you put together the pieces of life and weight loss for one last time. This is an episode of the Wellness for Women show, filmed live in the free Facebook group. Welcome, and welcome to the Wellness for Women show. And tonight we have the lovely Leah Hyne joining us, who is a yoga teacher, and she's the founder of Leah Yoga. Now, am I pronouncing that correctly, Leah?
Yep, that's right. Leah Yoga. Yeah.
Leah Yoga, perfect. And so, I'm very excited to have a chat with Leah tonight. So, Leah and I have been in a similar world for a little while now, and was just saying. Just very quickly before we came on that I feel like I know Leah really well, but I've never actually had a proper conversation with her.
Yeah. Joys of the online world.
Yeah, absolutely. And sort of seeing each other's posts and being in sort of a couple of groups together, and you did a lovely yoga session in the Wellness for Women group for me as well. And so, I feel like I know you really well, but it's kind of another unusual one because it was the same for my last guest as well. So tell everybody though a little bit about you, because they're perhaps not revolving in a similar circle.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Leah, and as Faye said, I'm the owner of Leah Yoga, and I am a yoga teacher that has been fully qualified for about 3 years now, I think, but I've been practicing yoga for a very, very long time before that. And yoga has been my safe haven for being a parent. So my initial goal with my yoga is to help empower parents to kind of get rid of the overwhelm and stress that come with parenting, and focus a little bit more on calming the mind and helping the body. So hopefully that fits well with what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm all for anything wellness based that's got its roots in holistic, some kind of holistic therapy, really, rather than anything restrictive. So 100% fits. And one thing that I've always said, or I've said a few times now, is that I absolutely love listening to Leah talk about yoga. I think you asked in your group, didn't you, about, if you had to describe it, and I was just like, I just love the way that you talk about yoga.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it sounded so natural. And I think, I'd been somebody who'd tried yoga and been to yoga classes, but they don't kind of sit you down at the start of a yoga class and tell you what it actually is.
No.
I just got in there, felt really insecure about not knowing any of the moves and what it all meant, and tried my best and then left thinking, what did I just do? Whereas when you came in and did the takeover for us, you gave us a little bit of a talk about it as well. So I don't know if you want to tell people a little bit about that, because as I say, although people will have heard of yoga, have they really heard of yoga?
Yes, definitely. God, I could talk about this all day.
I'm
So,
sure.
I think I felt the same as you. When I first started going to yoga, it was all, what people recognize yoga as, the stretching, the downward facing dog, the little funky sequences. It wasn't anything else. And nobody ever explained to me why I was doing what I was doing. So, even I got into yoga because of the physical side. So it was originally because I was very inflexible and I wanted to gain flexibility and I wanted to improve my physical body. And then I kept this up for years without understanding really why I was doing it. And then I had my daughter, and that's when I started noticing that when I was practicing yoga, my mind was better. So that brought me more into the, okay, what is this magic that is like helping de-stress me? So then I went on to my yoga teacher training because I wanted to learn more about yoga. My original intention wasn't actually to teach it. It was just, I just wanted to learn more about it. So I went to my yoga teacher training, and even there, we got into the philosophy side of yoga and all of that, which I'll get into in a second. But it wasn't until a teacher a couple years later, I did her online course, and she went into so much detail about why we do this yoga and how it relates to your life So it wasn't just a, this is yoga, this is what it does. It was a, this is yoga and this is how it's going to improve your life. And it just blew my mind. And one of the main things she said is how we see ourselves on the mat is how we see ourselves in the world as well. So as an example of that, one thing is if you're going into the physical side of yoga and you're on your yoga mat and you are constantly wanting to kind of nail out all these amazing poses, you want to do handstand and headstand and flip upside down and stretch, you know, all the different ways. Where else does that show up in your life? Where else in your life are you trying to perform? Where else in your life are you thinking you have to do all these things, thinking that you have to look cool, that you have to be the best, that you have to basically show off? And it wasn't until then that it made me think, oh, okay. So when I started doing my own yoga after listening to this, and I started noticing a few things about myself on the yoga mat, I started to notice that I would push myself, very similar to that situation, thinking that I had something to prove. So when I got on the mat, I purposefully made myself slow down. I started taking slower yoga classes. I started doing the deeper breathing, not pushing myself unless I really wanted to. But there's the balance with yoga. And I started noticing that was showing up in my life as well then. I was finding stressful moments in my life and I was thinking, right, slow it down, do the deep breathing. So that for me was just mind-blowing to yoga. That is how I thought, this is what I want to teach. This whole thing here. So I think that's why I got into, whenever now someone asks me about yoga, I have to go into all the detail because I have to kind of explain to them and show them the magic that can happen on the yoga mat. So going back to the original question and like what yoga is, there's actually, if you look at the yoga philosophy, there's 8 parts to yoga. There's the physical side, which is just one little part. There's breathing exercises. There's how you treat yourself, how you treat others. And then there's 4 different types of meditation. So like when you think about yoga, most people just think physical. But
Just
actually,
yeah.
but
Maybe made it to number 2 and then panicked.
That's it. There's all these different things. And if you actually do them in order from like, you know, these proper Indian gurus, they actually start with how you treat yourself. So how you treat yourself is just such a big thing. And the reason that most Westerners will go straight to the physical is because we're used to go, go, go. We're not used to being slow. So once we get on the mat, that's when we can then start figuring out about ourselves. So that's when that first kind of yoga limb comes in. They're called the 8 limbs of yoga, these 8 things. So when you get on your mat, you can start figuring out more about yourself, trying to figure out why you do what you do, trying to slow yourself down or even give yourself motivation depending on what you find on your yoga mat. So shall I leave it there a minute first and see if you've got any questions? Because I feel like I'm blah, 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 blah.
No, I mean, it's lovely. And like I say, I could listen to you for hours talk about it, but there was lots going through my mind. And I was also thinking, oh, I want to ask this and I want to say this. But then I was also thinking, like, I'm never going to remember it. So I'll just see what happens. But I mean, the first thing that came to my mind was how, and I said this before we started, I think, about sort of the similarities. It doesn't sort of matter what we're doing. There's a lot of similarities in the modalities that of the people that I'm talking with. And I think that's the thing for me, is that with what I do, it is about how you treat yourself first. And if you treat it is all about the love part and the self-love part. But I'm just doing it more with the food and our relationship with food. And again, lots of similarities in terms of the fact that you were the apprentice, became the master, which is exactly what I said to my guest last week as well. You know, that we've all come into our journeys and are now becoming the teachers of the things that we've learned and that we've loved. And and like you know, nowadays, if anybody even tries to have a conversation with me about food, it's all like food freedom, blah, 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 blah. This is the best thing that's ever happened to me. You know, why didn't I know it 40 years ago? And all this kind of thing. And I just love the fact that we all have these similar journeys, really.
Yeah, they are very, very similar. I have noticed that actually on a few of your podcasts, because I listen to your podcast, and we have all got the same message, and we've all just found it in a different way. And that's what's so great, I think, about the yoga stuff is most people go into it for the fitness, and they're not actually. They know that they want to improve themselves because that's where they're working on their body, but it's not until they get on the mat and they start looking more into the philosophy. And yoga teachers are always dropping these little subtle things into the class, and I think that starts to help them realize that actually they do need to go a little bit deeper than just the physical side.
And that was the other thing that was sparking me from when you were talking. And I should say that my computer glitched out. If you saw me pull a really weird funny face at you in a minute, YouTube people will see it. Anybody on the podcast wouldn't have missed the fact that my computer started doing something weird. But the other thing was that what you're saying about, and I've heard you say it before, about what you see in real life coming out on the mat. And so, for example, if you were struggling with balance in your life, you might struggle with balance on the mat, I've heard you say before. And I like the idea of yoga, but one thing that I knew about myself is that I didn't have a lot of patience for for slow yoga and holding long poses. And of course, there's all sorts of different types of yoga that you can do. And I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but I kind of do yoga moves, but to loud music in my head, which is obviously perhaps not what it's about. Don't worry so much about the breath, but I just really like the flow of getting in some of the, so like I'll start with like a sun salutation, but then maybe there's a little bop in there or something like that. So I call it yoga dance. But I'm now wondering as to whether that's just me avoiding the slowing down part, or the thinking, having a limiting belief, I guess, that I don't have the patience for what I think is true yoga. But again, I could be completely wrong as to what yoga is, if that makes sense.
I think there's two ways that you can look at this. I think first off, I think it's great that you've already noted that maybe you've got a bit of resistance there, but also everybody is different, and some people are going to be more high energy and not be able to, or not necessarily be able to, but not need the calmer and the slower pace. So depending on how your natural personality is, I'm sure you've had people already speaking to you about personality types and things like that. Like, all that plays a role for sure. But yeah, what I find a lot of the time is a lot of people will resist Shavasana, the last pose, the one where you lay down and you basically let your body feel everything that you've done. That Shavasana itself is very, very important after you've done whatever kind of yoga class, because like when you go to bed at night and your brain kind of rearranges everything that you've done in the day, your body does that in Shavasana as well. It's a really great time to release the muscles and let them feel the benefit of what you've just done. It's definitely the hardest thing, because normally your mind starts wandering off, and it's using your breath as an anchor to kind of keep focusing on your breath so that you don't think about anything else. And that is an extremely hard thing to do. But yeah, as you said, there are so many different types of yoga, and I know myself, there are so many that I haven't done because they are very, very difficult. For an example, I work at a yoga studio as well as all my online stuff. And there's a guy there who does rocket yoga. Oh, I haven't even been, because I know, yes, I know how difficult that is, where you're just suddenly thrown into an arm balance. There's obviously hot yoga, where you do it in a really hot room. There's so many different kinds. So I would say if anybody is considering it, maybe go on YouTube or something, or to a local yoga studio and try out some different styles, because they are all completely different. And another teacher that I've worked with before is I love her. She's so honest and open. And one thing that she said is she never wanted to do yoga. It was slow. It was for old people. It was stretching. That was it. And she went to the gym, and her gym class was cancelled, and the only thing on was yoga. So she thought, oh, well, I'll just go do it. So she dropped into this yoga class, and the woman next to her was a very advanced yogi, and she did the sun salutation. She just hopped up into like a scorpion handstand. So it's a handstand, but with your legs up and bent over you. And basically, it was an extremely hardcore class. And then she thought, wow, this is what I want to do. Because a lot of people look at yoga and think, oh, it's slow. But it isn't. There is so many different kinds of classes. So the best thing to do is to go and try loads of different ones. And one thing that I love to do is I teach vinyasa and yin, because they're really great for balance. So it's basically the yin and the yang. So the yang side is the vinyasa. That's like the sun salutations and doing the chaturanga, like press ups down to the floor. And then the yin side, you're holding the poses for around 5 minutes each. So it's very slow, but you can still be feeling a really deep stretch. So it's really great to have both of these balanced. But yeah, there are so many different kinds out there.
Yeah. And I think that was the thing. It's like you say, it's not only perhaps testing out the different types, but testing out the different people as well, isn't it? You know, like you say, you know, I've loved anything that I've caught of yours, and if I it's one of those where, again, you know, limiting beliefs in terms of time, you know, but if I was looking for a yoga teacher, I know that you would be the first person that I genuinely would come to. Whereas actually the thought of kind of going to a gym class now and doing that after I've seen what you do and how you do it, I think I would be a bit, you know, I'd be wary of that, because I'm like, well, actually I'm getting half the deal over there, really.
Thank you. That's nice.
Yeah, or to be fair to them, like you say, they haven't got it's not, when I say it's not what they're there for, like I say, it is more about the physical side, I would have thought, in a gym, rather than if you went to a yoga center like where you work, or your online membership, because you've got online membership. And you are as well going to drop a link for us, aren't you, with regards to, I think it was a balance
yoga yoga for balance workshop, which so in that workshop we look at the physical side, then we do a bit of journaling and talk about all of this kind of stuff, and then it's meditation. So it is a bit of, well, it's balance. It's the vinyasa yoga, and then it's the meditation, which is the slow down.
Yeah, and I do love that. Maybe that's where maybe I've thought, oh well, I don't need the meditative side of it, because I do journal and I do mindfulness and different things, you know, but actually it's making me think now as to whether, I say, next time I get on the mat, I'll be a little bit more observant with regards to what's coming up. Not entirely sure that I'll be holding poses for 5 minutes yet, but I did give myself like a little plank challenge once.
This is the thing, it can be really, really strong, but it's also, again, one of the hardest things is to adapt it to your own body. So as well as your mind thinking, like you said, maybe resisting some of the slower stuff, it's also adapting it to your body and using props and slowing down when you need to. And the main thing with yoga compared to kind of like other fitness things is, in my opinion, other fitness things, it's like, right, do this, you know, do 10 squats or whatever. In yoga, it's I invite you to do this thing. If you don't want to do it, if you don't feel it's right in your body, you don't do it. You adapt. And this is why it can be so different. When you go to a yoga class, you might notice everybody doing completely different things. But that's normal. It's because they're all adapting to their own body. And when you're doing it online, again, it's great because you're not comparing yourself to anybody. You are just feeling what you are feeling.
Yeah, and I think, like I say, what I really love about it and love the idea is sort of, it's almost the artistry of it. It is this flow part of it. I aspire to live in a flow state, and just sort of the it can be quite graceful, just sort of as you move through the poses, and again you can really put a flourish in it. And again, maybe this is maybe I have got this inner performer in me that I never really thought about. I like a little bit of a flourish when I do this sort of move or whatever it might be, you know, or I'm going into a warrior pose and it's like
definitely. And
this is with it.
Yeah, I do this a lot in my membership. So in my workshops and my stuff on YouTube, it's a little less flowy. It's a little bit more about the yoga and kind of like an introduction, and I explain a lot, so it is less flowy because I'm talking a lot and we're holding the poses a lot. But in my membership, because I know that the parents that I work with, you know, they're there to relax, they're there to have fun and do something for them for that half hour. They want a little bit of flowy. So we do go over like some really fun sequences, like jumping from one pose to another, not literally jumping, but going from one pose to another. And yeah, we just have a little bit of a laugh with it. And sometimes I will throw in like a really difficult pose. One, because like I just want them to experience something new and something fun. But two, because I want to make them laugh. Because once you laugh as well, your body relaxes and you can actually gain more flexibility in things like this as well. But it's just nice for them to try something new. And also sometimes they kind of shock themselves into, oh wow, I just did that and I didn't think I could. And again, it's trying to get across to them that, do you know what, you are capable then more than you think if you just give it a go. So again, it's kind of that yoga on and off the mat, showing them what's possible.
Yeah, and again, I absolutely love that. And next week's episode of the show actually is about finding joy, because that is a big part of what I want for people through food and life freedom. And what I'm offering is to find more joy, if people are working on weight loss, to find more joy in that process. You know, it's been such a years of restriction and feeling miserable about ourselves, our bodies, the food, diet, and everything, really, let's face it. You know, and I just want to help people to find more joy, because that is possible. And also, as you say, you know, in doing so, you find so much more about yourself. You then look for more opportunity, and like you say, you're stretching them on and off the mat, isn't it? You know, because sometimes we can have a tendency to close down and think that we can't do something, and actually, you know, just sometimes it takes that little nudge to start you off in the right direction, to be able to see those opportunities and those possibilities.
Definitely. Yeah. And I also, just to add to that as well, I have heard so many people say, oh, I can't do yoga, I'm too big, or I'm too old, or I'm too inflexible. And, you know, all of this stuff is all in your mind, because it really doesn't matter to do yoga or to do any of this. You just have to have the right mindset. It all comes down to that. And yeah, it really doesn't matter about anything else.
Yeah. And just to, like you say, just to be prepared to try, because I think it's a similar thing with, or can be a similar thing with weight loss, in the sense of that, you know, I'm sort of the thoughts of I'm too old, or, you know, it's in my genes, or, you know, I'm never going to be able to, you know, all those things, because the beliefs that we've built up over the years, because of the histories that we've had, isn't it? And and like I say, that will come out for people who may contemplate working on yoga as well. But like I say, it is such a forgiving activity as well. I think, like you say, you can adapt, you can have props. You don't necessarily, you know, if there's a particular move that you can't do for so like when I had a larger body, I struggled with my knees and I struggled with my back, and so there were certain yoga moves that I couldn't do because I found that they hurt my knees and my back. Whereas now I know more about sort of adapting to my body and having that flexibility to be able to do that, and that's again is just like kind of that freedom on the mat as well, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I wish more people would use props as well. And I do this in all my classes. I will grab a blanket for my knees. I will use my blocks to put my hands on. It's all about making it easier for your body. And you're trying to kind of relax into the pose and be fully present with what you're feeling. So if you are in, say on all fours and your knees are hurting, you know, that's not being in tune with your body. You need to, well, it is to feel that. So you need to go and grab a blanket and put it underneath your knees. And I use them so often to also prove to other people, you know, I've been practicing yoga for over 10 years now. I will still grab a blanket for my knees and use the blocks and use the strap, and it's only going to help your practice, rather than, you know, oh, I've been doing this for years, I don't need the props. It's completely not about that. I've seen the most experienced yogis, they all use props.
Yeah. And also as well, let's face it, you're not going to be able to consistently do something if you do yourself a mischief in some way, shape or form.
Yes.
I do, you'll be pleased to know I do have props.
Yeah,
I do have blocks and I do have a strap. And also I quite like using the strap because you can get a deeper stretch, especially if I'm sort of sitting, lying down and sort of stretching my legs out and that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So just have that support. But again, thinking about sort of what we were saying earlier about, you know, relationships on and off the mat, I'm somebody who for years would have struggled to show weakness. Again, I did a show on this a couple of weeks ago about not showing emotion, and sort of being a recovering perfectionist and not wanting to be able to admit that I couldn't do something. So that would make sense as to why I would be somebody who would then perhaps think that I couldn't use props, because it might, like you say, it's a sort of a loss of face almost. Whereas actually we all need support in life from time to time, isn't it? You know, we all need help, and that's okay. Some of us haven't been used to doing that over the years.
Exactly. Yeah. And on that note as well, like with showing emotion, that kind of stuff can help with yoga, because it's not I don't know anybody listening how everybody's knowledge is of the chakras, but we've got energy points in the body, and when we open our body in these yoga poses, it can kind of release these energy points, and it gets your emotions flowing and everything like that as well. So it really can help you to understand more about your emotions and how you're feeling. And sometimes you can like do a pose on the mat and all of a sudden be like burst into tears or something, because there's this emotion that's been stored in you, and then all of a sudden it just comes out, and it can be so powerful. But it can also be scary if you've never experienced anything like that at all. It really can teach you so much about yourself. And I just love explaining all this, especially in my classes. If anybody ever comes to my classes, you'll know that I explain all of this as we do it, because I think, why do something if you don't know why you're doing it?
Yeah. And like you say, there is far more to it than just we're doing it to stretch this part of our body or whatever it might be, which, like I say, I think would be possibly most people's experience with yoga. I would have thought. So yeah, it is absolutely fascinating. And I think as well, just sort of briefly, because I don't want to keep you too long, because again, I could talk for hours with people. It's sort of as a parent as well, you know, I can see the benefits of that, not only for finding a little bit of you time, but as you say, you know, there's a lot of tension that you can hold in your body, and that, you know, we can get emotions trapped in our bodies, and that mind and body connection is a big thing. And if we want better relationships with others, ourselves, and also be able to handle situations that come up, we do need to get in tune, body, mind and soul, which is again a big part of what I do, and I know it's a big part about what you do as well.
Yes, definitely. It's definitely had a major impact on my parenting for sure. And a lot of people that I've worked with. And just as an example, we are having extremely hard bedtimes right now. And bedtime is a real struggle. She doesn't want to go. She'll fight it and fight it and fight it. And I get extremely wound up because first off, I think, especially doing the yoga and everything else that I do, I've figured out my triggers is, you know, if she goes to bed early, I get my time. If she doesn't, I don't. So straight away, I'm like wound up thinking, I need my time now, go to bed. So straight away, my emotions are running high. And then you look at the yogic techniques and everything that we've learned, and it's like, okay, I can feel that coming up in my body now, like you would do in a yoga pose on the mat. So let's slow it down, close down the eyes, maybe deep inhale, deep exhale, slow down the heart rate. Okay, I feel better. I feel like I can deal with this better now. So yeah, it does all relate. It's all ups and downs, isn't it? But we learn as we go, and that's the whole thing. it's a yoga practice, because we are constantly practicing it. None of us is going to be perfect. And although everybody gets this idea of yoga teachers being all calm and living this wonderfully graceful life, we're not. We're all crazy, because we are all learning as we go. But it is a great thing, like you said, to take into your life, not just for parenting and your kids as well, but everybody else in your life, all of your relationships.
Yeah. And then, like you say, it's seeing that parallel, isn't it? So certainly what I found on my weight loss journey is things that were coming up for, and especially the method that I teach, you can use that across the whole of life, sort of gathering that awareness and then taking action. Sometimes, sort of a bit more on the mind and the cognitive side of it, but it is still about then dropping into your body and using your intuition towards it is as well. And just taking time to, like you say, figure yourself out and figure out what comes up for you, and it was a big shift for me, maybe not through yoga, but a similar thing where I had some coaching about how I wanted to parent, as my daughter was heading towards teenage years, and I was dreading these teenage years, like I say, I've got this belief that teenage years were going to be absolutely horrendous and blah, 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 blah. I mean, I used to joke when she was a younger child that she was going to be pregnant at 12 with an asbo. I mean, it was one of those things. I completely got it in my mind that this was going to be horrendous. And I had this coaching, and it was, well, how do you want to show up? And it was, I want to show up with compassion for her, because whatever she does, she'll be living life through her lens. And so as soon as I embraced that, and was mindful about her, it's completely changed our life, and it's there's a lot of people who perhaps would go through and never do any of the work that you and I do, and it's just so beneficial.
Definitely. And like you said, you can do it through so many different things. There's so many different ways to learn this about yourself, because although it's parenting and it's about them, it's about changing you and the way you are.
You've only got control over yourself at the end of the day. You can't control others, for sure. You can't control situations. You can only control yourself and control your own emotions. But in doing so, as you say, if you're taking that breath and taking that pause and then approaching your daughter, you're going to be approaching her in a very different way than if you hadn't took that breath and pause and that me time that, like say, you crave. Then you spent it in judgment over the fact that I should have done this better or differently, isn't it? Whereas like say, you can move on quicker as well, which again is the beauty of it. And again, what I love is that, again, everything that we all do, it is about finding your own path. Again, it's a big thing for me, is finding my path, and taking the bits from all of the bits that you learn along the way, isn't it? So you might find somebody who would like work with me and work with you, and then take a bit of something else from over here. And it's about, like say, trying all these things and just finding what works and fits for you. And maybe you learn a little bit about yourself from this modality and another little bit about yourself from over here. And then, like say, I describe it as a jigsaw, don't I? So it's about getting all the jigsaw pieces out on the table and then trying to put it all together. So
that's it. We're all going to resonate with different people, aren't we, with different things. So it is about finding those pieces.
I mean, you'll never have a one size fits all for everything, isn't it? There is no one stop shop for again when you're trying to figure out life, when it's so complex and glorious and at the same time, isn't it?
If only it was that easy.
I know, right? Magic wand.
That's it.
But I'm very grateful to have had you on the show today, Leah, and obviously we'll have to have you back again, because I'm sure, like I say, we've only touched the tip of the iceberg. So, but it's been an absolute pleasure putting a proper moving face and conversation to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
No worries at all. And anybody who is listening on podcast or catching it on the YouTube, check out the descriptions, because I will be popping Leah's links on there. And so make sure that you go check her out and grab her free goodies for you. And we'll see you soon. Bye for now. Thanks for listening. And don't forget, if you want to boost your life and weight loss the AAA way, check out the relevant links for today's show in the description. Speak soon.